tiny little room in the back of the hospital, and that I was birthed in. So he paid £5 for me to have that little room. But what we're going through now with the pandemic and the, what's its name, everything that's happening, it was like that when I was born. 1929 I was born. And it's frightening just to think about it. Because I feel I'm about the only one left, and I ask God, why am I still here? Because there'd be about 60 girls in the home, and they're all gone. They're all gone. And I often ask, why am I still here? But then, of course, being a Bible student, I look at Jeremiah 27, verse 11. I know the plans I have for you. And I believe God does have a plan for us all, whichever way we look at it. But it was depression at the time that I was born, and my father had to go away to find work. If you were a blackfellow, you never got a job. My grandfather couldn't get work because he had his own equipment, horses, buggy, everything else to go to stations. He did the butchering. He did all sorts of things. He was a wonderful man. And with Frank away, I'll call my father Frank because I'm not used to having a father. When Frank was away then, grandfather went to the police protector and can't feed his family, his children. No jobs anywhere. He put on a yarn there to them, and how about going to Baramba? Now Cherbourg was called Baramba in those days. He said, they'll help you out. And I made sure that for a little while, he said, because I was 6 months old. And I believe Mum said to grandfather when he came back, what did the police say? And we said, we can go to Cherbourg or to Baramba for a little while. And she said, well, Frank's not here, so I'll come with you. Ruth is only six months old, 6.5 months old. Because Granny had a small baby as well. And they birthed those children out under a tree. Mum was called Bathalanchi after the tree where she was birthed. And she helped grandfather as the other kids came. They were all birthed under the tree. We finally went to Baramba, packed up. He sold everything, got enough money to take us all to Baramba. And I often, when I'm out talking to people, and because I'm writing my mother's story now, I want to get into her. I want to get into her head sort of thing as I'm writing the story, just to know how a mother or a grandmother would feel, having lost everything. And she knew she was coming back to marry Frank. So she went on that long trip. It was a long journey for them all. But when she got there, when I was doing some research for the book, I said to her, how come you didn't leave? We stayed there. I said, you weren't going to stay there. And she said, no one would listen to me. No one would listen to me. I'm only here because I brought my parents. And she said something that amazed me. Do you want that piece of paper?
No.
She said, let me explain it this way, Ruth. You were like an old piece of rag. She said, separated in 3 parts. She was holding a bit of paper, a bit of rag. Grandfather, go to the camp with the rest of the Murrays. You'll find some place to live. Her brothers, go to the boys' dormitory. So they split up there. And he said, Ruby, you take your daughter. Go to the home with her. But she couldn't speak English. And she had to learn how to. But it was, I didn't know about all this tragedy. Because growing up, I grew up as a dormitory girl. I was all right. I could fight my way through anything. which you have to do when either in a prison or in an institution. You've got to fight your way, and I was always the smallest person, but people knew who I was anyways, because I could fight my way out of anything. Life was generally pretty good because I knew the rules, just as everybody else. You knew what you could do and what you couldn't do. Mum would sit over on the other side of the big dining room, and I would always try to sit. I just said to her, when you sat on that table, at that table, big stools and big long tables, you always had your back turned to me. She said, I had to do it. I said, why? She said, Ruth, every time something happened, it was you. All I had to hear was, is that you, Ruthie? And you learn to tell the truth. That's a silly thing about it. We were always very truthful. I would say, yeah, and I'd have to stand out in the middle of the dining room until everybody had finished eating, and the bell would go for school, and I had a good little mate who would put a bit of damper in her pocket for me. Because I'd miss out on dinner. But when you live there till you're about 22 years of age, that is your home. That becomes your home. It's like any prisoner that doesn't want to go out. That is your home. It doesn't matter what treatment we got, very little food to eat, all wore the same clothes. Everything that happened there, it became a thing that you put up with. You didn't question it. The beds we slept in had bugs in the mattresses, in the walls. I used to sit up at night with a little hurricane lamp and try and dab places around with kerosene so the bugs wouldn't come near me. It was just a life, and you accepted that life because nobody ever said this is wrong until one of the matrons that came there, a white woman, she said, this is terrible. Kids, all the sheets and pillow slips had blood stains on it from mashing those things down, killing them. And they fumigated the whole place. It was good sleeping after that, I'll tell you. But the food wasn't good. A few weeks ago, there was an article on Facebook. Somebody put up a photo of the jail that was in the yard, the dormitory. It was the women's jail. And when I saw that, I thought, oh my God. Having not seen it for such a long, long time, it was dilapidated looking, it needed paint. I got my pen and paper out, my pencil and paper, and I began writing an article about that jailhouse. What it did to us. We knew the doors were always open. You will go there if you misbehave.
And you outlived it.
Pardon?
You outlived it.
I did outlive it. But that's where you'll go. And we've spent many times in that jailhouse if we misbehaved.
Was it called the jailhouse?
Big pardon?
Was it called the jailhouse at the time as well?
Yeah, you'll be put in the jail. And because we had no electricity at that time, it was before electricity all came on. It was always a dark room. So there were two little rooms at the back and then one big one in the front. So you were extra naughty, you'd have to go into the little room. And it frightened the life out of us, if we had to go into that little, no beds. There's mattresses on the floor, tin, what's his name, to
hole in the floor.
do your wee in.
Body.
And I wrote quite a big article about that. Just the fear, such fear that it put into it. It was always there. So that's one of my articles that I'm going to publish when the time comes. You couldn't go to bed with undies on. The old woman would be standing there with a torch, or the lantern anyways, and you'd have to lift up the old nightie. You had no clothes on underneath. Old calico nightie. I said, can't you even, sort of get it in your mind just how it was for all of these young girls, 60 of them. And I said, being treated like that, walking up and you couldn't keep your clothes upstairs because we had a box room. Everything was put into the one box, so you dived around in that box looking for clothes.
First in, best dressed.
Big button.
First in, best dressed with the clothes.
No best dressed. But if you got in early, you'd get a long nightie because we had to sleep two in a bed.
Oh.
So there'd be, we used to have 6 anyways, because it'll be top and tail in the beds. So I tried to put this all into a book form. So not that I'm not angry about anything, but I think it's made me the sort of person that I am. It has. And God has given me the gift of writing. Now, I used to go out to my mum's. I'm still good friends with the young boys that my mum worked for their families. And I pop in and see him when I go to Cherbourg. He lives in Gympie, he's just 1 year older than me. And we sit down and we have a good old laugh about those. That's good times that you had.
Yeah.
But I'd go to Mum's where they used to let me have a holiday there, just a week. But I discovered later on that when I brought all my presents back from Christmas, they locked them away, they took them off us. And Aunty Ada Simpson rang me one day, she said, you should have been here. I said, what happened? She said, that box room, they got all Euphyllis toys there. She said they were just giving it out to people. I said, no, that's a terrible thing for them to do to us. I said, I'd come back from, Cinnabar with all of these good things and the matron will take it off me.
It's cruel.
Yes. I should have bought my little doll that I made. A little tiny one like that. We all made a little doll.
Out of what? Whatever you found.
A straw, little head with wadding in it, I remember taking it to one of the marches to show some of the girls were still alive. And they said, give it to us. I said, no, you make your own. Because we all made our own. But I suppose the life there, it was something that we had to write about. We had to get that all together. It was something that I needed to do. I really needed that. It helped. Just the couple of weeks ago, I went to Cherbourg for the weekend, and I sold some of the books up there to some of our elders. They wanted to buy them. I take them with me. And one of them sent a message back to me and said to my daughter, tell your mother those books are about all of us. That book belongs to all of us. She has written that story, supposed to be her own, but that is about us all. And that pleased me very much. That certainly did, because when I went to the camp to live, we had a terrible time there too. But, life can be hard. Yeah, so life's been a struggle. Of course it has been a real struggle. Not having Mum with me, and now that I'm able to, with the freedom of information, I'm able to get all the stuff about her and about grandfather from the Department of Native Affairs. I'm able to get it in, so what I'm writing about now is my mum's life, how she was robbed. I could not believe it. She was going to be married then. Well, I didn't meet Frank till I was 65.
Really?
Wow.
When she walked into my house one day at Zilmia, she said, Ruth, yes, you should find your father. I thought Joe just about head nearly fell off his neck. Find a father? I said, have I got one? Because no one in the dormitory had a father. I said, "Have I got one?" He said, "Everybody's got a father." "Well, I don't even know his name. What's his name? What am I calling him?" We got to meet Frank. And somehow I think Frank also, he's lost a lot. He lost a lot, because when I rang up and after I'd found him, and I just said, "You might know my mother, Ruby Duncan. I'm her daughter." And he just said to me, "You're Ruth." And I thought, how beautiful that was. How beautiful that he remembered my name. And I was 65 years of age, hadn't forgotten me. But separation did a lot to our people. You've only got to watch the, you get on the Sherberg Facebook. It's interesting, very, very interesting. People are searching for family forever, and there's always somebody that can give them an answer. Young, what's his name? Troy Georgetown runs that Sherberg line. And the information that you get from that is really, really good.
It's really difficult, Aunty, to
Yeah.
tell other people what it's
Yeah.
like to have your parents taken away. You
That's
read
right.
about it in
Yeah.
countries overseas, and
That's right.
there's been this removal of people, extermination of people, but
Yeah.
it happens here too. And
Yeah.
I listened to your story, and I remember how my mother used to tell me
Yeah.
and my brothers and sisters, go inside the house. Whenever
When
there's
somebody came.
when there's a government car, we all go, and we're all drilled to go and hide in the
Yeah.
house, and that's in Bundaberg. But these things that we're talking about is in our lifetime.
It is.
And that's the thing that's
Yeah.
most despicable about this
It is.
conduct.
The people out at Mitchell, Mum tells me, when they saw the black car coming, they'd put the baby under the tub, or blacken their faces or something, because you'd had a better chance of getting taken, I guess, if you were half caste
Yeah.
rather than full blood.
But I appreciate how
Yeah.
courageous these women were
Yes.
too, and in the face of a legislative power that could just crush their very identity
That's right.
and remove them and displace, like this rag,
Yeah,
treated like a piece of rag.
that's right.
And these women were so brave.
And nobody cared.
Well, they had no voice, did
No,
they?
we had no voice. I think one of my poems are about that, no voice. I've written quite a few during my time with the COVID. I started to write. But we had no voice. You'd get into trouble. That little jailhouse is waiting for you if you speak out. Or you'd go to Palm Island. But, if we could, I don't know if we'll ever be able to turn back the pages to that time. Probably never would. I've got, my granddaughter now is doing law. I shall introduce her to you. She's doing it online. And young Adam Chapman, he just passed the bar. He's my nephew.
I was talking to that rascal today.
Yes. Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
And he said to say hello.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. He
lovely
knows
young
his
man.
auntie.
Yeah, lovely young man.
Yes. And I have asked Quatsef. I have meetings. I still have meetings with them. He's going to send me, from it's been 11 years since we've been helping kids. Many of them have gone into law, quite a lot of them. What it was all about. It was old people's money. It's our money that we went to work. When I first went to work, they were paying me 5 shillings a week. And 2 6 from that went into the bank. I didn't mind that because I've never had money. Nobody gives us money. And I thought, 5 shillings, that's good. two shillings going, 2 and 6 going into the bank. I didn't find out till I was a grown woman with kids and everything, when Dr. Ros Kidd wrote her book, The Way We Civilize, wonderful book, that the government was taking our money. We didn't have a bank. Nobody had a bank. Everything went into one big
Pool.
bank account,
Ah.
into the Commonwealth Bank, and they used that money to build. Now there's evidence of that. Toowoomba Hospital, Redcliffe Hospital, part of the women's, the main roads. They had fun with the money, and politicians used to take loans out of that. I was asked to go to Ros. She was launching the book, and I said, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear anything. I'm going home. Anyways, I couldn't get a train at the time, so I went in there to hear her talk. I could not believe. I think that's where it all started from. I could not believe people who we trusted them. They were robbing us blind. And it goes way back, not only just to Cherbourg, but to every mission on the place. And so our soldiers that went to war, they also had half their wages taken from them. When they come back, they couldn't get a bit of land. So, there's such injustice in this place.
What did the government label that under? What did the government label that 2 and 6 pence under when they stole
That was
it?
my bank account.
That's
They
what
didn't
call
tell
it.
me. They didn't tell me that they were going to use that for themselves. Because I think my first letter, as Moira discovered that I started writing letters to the government then. I was turning 15 and I thought, there was no phones. I wrote letters, so they gave me 7 and 6 then, but I still had to give half of that to the government, so that was okay. I thought, well, this is good, I'll have a bank account when I leave here. But there was nothing.
Imagine that today, like the
Yeah.
percentage of that
Yeah.
7 and 6 out of that wage.
Yeah.
And then we work,
You would have
and we
everyone on the
just,
street protesting.
but then we just hand that money
Yeah.
over and think, I don't even know where it's going. And there's no accounting of the money, it's just bizarre.
So it's interesting enough because I've done the research. When you think of 2 million, right up through the Torres Strait, and whilst we were doing all our protesting there, we found out that the government was also employing Papua New Guineans, employing them.
Yeah. Well, that was part of Queensland. at one
Yes,
stage,
it
wasn't
was. And so they wanted their stolen wages too.
It comes back to not having a voice for so long, that you didn't ask or push it, that you just accepted it.
That's
because you've
right.
always accepted
Yes.
what came
That's
your way.
right. Oh yes.
But I think it starts with stealing your country out
Yes.
from under you.
Yeah, well that's
And then you
that's right.
become displaced, you've got no rights, you're not recognised, and the same level as flora and fauna,
Yeah.
and you're not even treated as a human being. That's the thing I find
Yeah.
distasteful.
That's right.
But Mum used to say, money's the root of all evil.
The love of money.
Yeah, she never said that. Money is the root of all evil. And you think about the corruption, and it has some.
Well, that's all they were keeping us in the dormitory for. Because you didn't know when you were going out to work. Well, you all knew we would go out to work when we turned 14. And kids were missing, of my generation. Where were they going? Well, gone to work. We didn't know where they'd gone to because nobody got letters. Nobody got any letters from anybody. Then having to ask him for permission to marry them. But I wrote a bit about that in the second book. So Joe and I knew each other at school, and we got together later on because I had 2 children before I got married. And to took an interest in me anyways. But this was going to be the father of my child. And we had to go to the superintendent. And you don't go to your parents for anything. You do not go and ask your parent that you want to get married, get permission from your dad. We had to go to the superintendent. It's so embarrassing. So, he's got the paperwork there. And I remember him saying to Joe, did your father know about this? He said, I'm over 21. He said, I can make my own mind up. But one of the things about signing that paper was that if you misbehaved, I had a reputation for misbehaving. If you misbehaved, they can stop that marriage. Just like that. It took 8 weeks for the paperwork to go down and to come back, because there was none of this new stuff anymore. And I remember Joe saying to me, Ruth, behave yourself, please. We only got an hour each night to meet outside on the grass. And they had policemen walking around there with torches. Behave yourself, he said. They can tear that paper up and we wouldn't get married. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. So don't worry about it. Yeah, I did get into trouble. I had a fight with someone. And I went into that little house. And he was so terrified that they didn't stop the wedding. But that's how much power they had. They could let you know these things. Such a lot of power for people to have. So, yeah, they'd make sure. But there was no homes in Cherbourg anyways at that time. You had to live with in-laws and everybody sat around outside fires and no electricity.
How do you operate under so much fear and like such little power to actually do anything, even
You
so simple
become
with your
cunning.
cunning?
You become very cunning. I just want to get my tissues in. You become very cunning. That's what it's all about. And every one of us supported each other. We would support each other. And all you need is that you got your own power. We were so cunning. We could sneak downstairs at night and steal from the pantry. No one would know about it. I remember they brought turnips in. Nobody knew about turnips. When we got down to the pantry that night, oh, turnips, what are these? Anyways. Yeah, pulled that 90 up, took it upstairs. Even the little ones knew that they could take the skin off those turnips. And we had a drum, you had your tinderbox. Or upstairs, the drum, where you couldn't do number twos in.
Because you had your food in there.
No, the government wouldn't allow us.
Oh, gosh.
And they knew that when they peeled those turnips that it would go into that drum.
Okay.
Everyone knew that. We had 2 wards, and then we had the kids that slept outside. They were the pee the beds. I think one of my chapters were on those kids. That hurt me very much to see those little children that wet the bed. There was no one to help them, no one to guide them through that. They slept outside. And if you had a little sister, you slept out with her.
That must be freezing in winter.
It was freezing because the whole place was open. It was terrible. And they had to drag those mattresses down in the morning, which was made of fibre. Coconut fibre.
I remember,
Yeah. And stand them out in the sun. And I could still hear the voices. Where those pay-the-bads take their mattresses up. This was a life of kids in that dormitory. And everybody will be waiting ready to take that drum downstairs the next morning because they didn't want it spilt anywhere with all that turnip.
Ew.
skins in it. Yeah, so, yeah, you learn to be cunning. That's all it's all about. And you can almost kick yourself later, to think that I've done all. Because I was the last one left amongst our group. The others had already gone, so I had to share the room, the ward, because when you turned a certain age, you got into the next ward. And I was in there when they brought the other 12-year-olds into that room with me. And they will tell you that you taught us everything.
Yeah.
Well, somebody had to. I said.
Yeah.
Smoking down at the duck pond. Doing all sorts of things that you can get away with, to think that you were more, powerful than the people up there in the big house. But it still goes on.
And the punishment, if you were caught, like they seem like kids things, trivial things, but what would the punishment be like?
Have your hair shaved off.
Floggings?
Yeah, I've got a photo of the cat and nine tail. I went to the jail when they locked down Bogger Road, and I saw it there in this glass thing. I got one of the screws. I said, "Here, can I get a photo taken with this thing?" He said, "Yeah." And I've got a photo of myself with that cat and nine tail. That's what we got belted with.
Oh. My word.
Yes. Naked.
Oh.
It's all about control and discipline.
It is about control.
Control and discipline.
Yes, that's what it is. But it was our people that were doing it.
Yeah.
It was our people. They just get the orders and they carry them out.
Like the Uncle Toms.
Yes.
Did you call them Uncle Toms?
No, I never heard that word until I went to the movies, I think.
Yeah.
But they were there. But when I wrote the first book, and I put most of that stuff in it, now this is about getting permission also, because you can't write a book about your people unless you get permission from them. Say, for instance, somebody wanted to write about your family. So I did that about the dormitory, and Granny Nancy, that was our boss there, her family's still there, they run the ration shed. And I sent the book up to them, that I was writing, and asked them to read it. I said, "You can't stop me from publishing it. I will publish it, but I wanted you to see it before I published it." So Sandra just said, "That's history. That's our history." So when the second one, then I had to send it to my brother-in-laws and my sister-in-laws to let them know that I was doing that one. And I said again to them, "You can't stop it. It will get published." But I said, "I think we need to know what was going on at that time."
Did you sometimes have voices not wanting you to publish it?
One of my sister-in-laws thought it was terrible. But my brother-in-law, Peter, the only one that was left, he was in Vietnam, and he wrote, I said, "Ring me when you finish reading it, because I've got to get this done." He rang and he just burst out crying. He said, "I'm sorry, Ruth," he said, "but I feel," he said, "to think that all this has happened. To think that all this has happened.
And
But we need more, but that's why I write all these articles."
Sorry.
a lot of people can't talk about it, and I think they've been carrying that, and
That's right.
you've put it out there,
Yes.
and now they feel the permission to grieve.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
what the old auntie said, but to my daughter Maylie, she said, "Your mother's written about us." Now, I didn't have Jack published, so that has gone back up there now for them to read about Jack, because we missed Jack for such a long time, and I didn't know where he got to. He was a brother from the boys' dormitory. He was willing to tell me his story before he died. Actually, he read the manuscript a couple of days before he died. And, I said to him about a eulogy for him. He said they could read the book.
Yeah.
we don't need a eulogy, he said. Let them read the book.
Yeah.
But you know, you're asking before what God's purpose is
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
And that might be it, part of the purpose.
Oh, yeah. I do believe that.
Put that out
But I
there.
still have to ask. Why am I still here?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm in my 92nd year and
Mm.
I feel as good as gold. About 3 months ago, I had a diabetic thing that happened to me. And I had a little fall at my house, and I have one of those things you wear around your neck, so I call the ambulance. Pill for this, pill for that, pill for the other thing, and we take it.
Yeah.
I won't do that anymore. I question everything.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
Yeah.
But life hasn't been good for a lot of our people. It has not been. And I think because of the time, my son is a regional manager, my baby son. He does the whole of the Harvey Bay and out to Blackall, all that area. He's the boss for all of that. And we're very proud of what he's done, you know. Some of our old people come down from the north, and I think it was Bobby, she was an activist here in Brisbane years ago. I've got her thesis home. And one of the things she said, that when our old people come down from up north, all they see is white. In the you know, everything's white.
Yeah.
Even white people serving her and everything. And serving the old people. I just tell the nurses now, when you go in, I said, we're all aunties. That's the name, that's a proper name. What's his name us all? Just put your hand on her and say, how are you today, Auntie? You can imagine how that helps. That's a wonderful thing to do to our older people. Don't stand back stylish, you know.
Connection. Yeah, connection.
Yes, it's that connection. And yes, Bobby was one of our, she died not long ago, she went back to America. But I have her thesis at home. I'm a collector. I'm a collector of people's writings and things, yeah, I like them.
Ruth, my question is about racism.
Yes.
And that my observation even of myself and my upbringing,
Yeah.
but what I see still there is that, so the things you describe, like families being broken up and language and culture being lost and people being disoriented, that leads to people behaving in certain ways, and then that becomes a cycle. People say, oh, Aboriginal people are lazy, Aboriginal people are violent, Aboriginal people are whatever, and they form these assumptions. And I certainly grew up with some of those assumptions.
Yes. Well, they were around.
And they still are.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about what you think is the most powerful force against racism, because you've talked about some of the things that you're doing. Yeah.
We need to respect each other. That's what we need to do, regardless of colour or skin or we have to respect each other.